For decades, we've been sold a clean and convenient story about three of the most pivotal assassinations in modern history. They told us that JFK was killed by a lone deranged gunman with a magic bullet, that Martin Luther King Jr., a leader who preached peace, was murdered by a petty racist with a rifle, and that Robert F. Kennedy, a man poised to lead a nation out of chaos, fell victim to a single crazed assassin in a hotel room. These narratives have been spoon-fed to us through history books, documentaries, and the media, all designed to close the case and bury the truth. But here's the reality. These weren't random acts of violence. These were carefully orchestrated eliminations of men who challenged the power structures of their time, men who were a threat to the establishment. And now, with newly released files from the government, files they fought tooth and nail to keep hidden, the truth is finally emerging. The question isn't whether the CIA was involved, it's how deeply their hands were in the planning, execution, and cover-up of these assassinations. This isn't a theory, this is a conspiracy built on declassified facts. In this video, we're not just revisiting history, we're dismantling it. Piece by piece, we'll uncover how the CIA's covert operations align perfectly with the deaths of these three visionaries. By the end, you'll question everything you thought you knew about American history, and you'll see why the truth was suppressed for so long. Let's dive into the evidence, starting with JFK, the president who dared to stand up against the military-industrial complex. John F. Kennedy was a threat to the elites from day one. He pushed for peace with the Soviet Union, opposed the Bay of Pigs invasion, and warned about the growing influence of the CIA. His famous words about splintering the CIA into 1,000 pieces made him an enemy within his own government. The official story blames Lee Harvey Oswald, but the facts don't add up. How did a supposed lone gunman pull off such a precise shot with a subpar rifle? And why did Oswald himself claim he was just a patsy? Newly released files point to CIA operatives monitoring Oswald months before the assassination. You know what this really sounds like? This sounds like the United Healthcare situation. And evidence suggests he was groomed to play the fall guy. If you want to uncover the truth and expose all the lies, hit that subscribe button right now. The CIA's fingerprints are all over this case, from their surveillance of Oswald to their suppression of evidence after the assassination. And this isn't some wild accusation. It's backed by a paper trail that stretches decades. Let's start with their surveillance of Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald didn't just appear out of nowhere, but the surveillance is only the beginning. What about the CIA's actions after JFK's assassination? Evidence was not only mishandled, it was deliberately suppressed. Witness statements that contradicted the official story were ignored. Autopsy photos vanished. Key documents were locked away under national security, many of which are only now coming to light. The Warren Commission report, which concluded that Oswald acted alone, was heavily influenced by the CIA. Members of the commission even admitted that they relied on information spoon-fed to them by intelligence operatives. And then there's Operation Mockingbird, a CIA program that infiltrated the media to plant disinformation and control public perception. This wasn't a conspiracy theory, it's a documented fact. The agency had journalists on its payroll, feeding them narratives that aligned with their agenda. After JFK's assassination, the media quickly labeled anyone questioning the official story as a conspiracy theorist. It was a calculated move to discredit dissenters and silence anyone digging too deep into the truth. Why? Because the more you dig, the more you find. And what you find paints a very different picture of what happened in Dallas that day. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't just a civil rights leader. He was revolutionary. By 1968, King had shifted his focus to economic justice in opposition to the Vietnam War. He was calling out America's hypocrisy on a global stage and that made him a threat to the establishment, aka the elites. The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover considered King an enemy of the state. COINTELPRO's explicit goal was to discredit and dismantle King's movement. They even sent him an anonymous letter urging him to commit suicide. Oh yes, and yet, we're supposed to believe that James Earl Ray, a petty criminal, acted alone in killing him? The newly released files suggest otherwise. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man who shook the very foundations of power in his country. His words, his influence, his mission, they were seen as a threat to the status quo. And his assassination? It wasn't the act of a lone wolf. It was far more sinister. King's family has long believed that the government played a role in his death, and the new files being released only deepened that conviction. Let's break it down. At the time of his death, Dr. King wasn't just a civil rights leader. He was a vocal component of the Vietnam War and an advocate of economic justice. He was calling for a nationwide Poor People's Campaign, a movement that would unite marginalized communities and disrupt the systems of power. That kind of vision was revolutionary and dangerous to those who benefited from inequality. The FBI labeled King as the most dangerous man in America. Think about that for a moment. A man advocating for equality and peace was considered a national threat? JFK, MLK, and RFK weren't just killed. They were silenced. Silenced for challenging the system, for exposing corruption, and for demanding a better future. These newly released files confirm what we've long suspected. The CIA and other powerful elites orchestrated these assassinations to maintain control. The truth is out there, but it's up to us to demand it, to question everything, and to hold the powerful accountable. Don't let their stories be buried. Share this video, leave a comment, and let's uncover the truth together. Stay raw and stay exposed.